On a quiet Tuesday morning, a company worth $100 million died. No headlines, no dramatic announcement, just a number on a screen, smaller than it was supposed to be. Youssef stared at it for a long time. 3 years earlier, investors had fought to get into his company. Employees had left stable jobs to follow him. His name had been called visionary. Now there was barely enough money left to pay salaries. And the strangest part? It did not collapse because of the market. It did not collapse because of competition. It collapsed because of one decision. A decision he made on a day that felt completely ordinary. He did not notice the exact moment the lights changed. That is always how it happens. Not with a crash, not with a loud sound, just a slow dimming, like a candle running out of wax in a room where everyone has already fallen asleep. Youssef had not slept properly in 11 months, not the deep, honest sleep of a man whose conscience is clear. His sleep was the kind that comes in pieces, 2 hours here, 40 minutes there, interrupted by the buzzing of a phone that never brought good news anymore. He would sit up in the dark of his apartment, surrounded by papers, empty cups, and the blinking light of a laptop screen, and he would press his hands against his face and hold them there, as if trying to keep something inside from escaping. 3 years earlier, that same apartment had smelled like coffee and possibility. Young men and women had filled it until midnight, laughing over ideas, arguing about visions, drawing futures on napkins. He had built something from nothing, from a single thought, a single belief that the world needed what only he could see. And for a while, it had been real. Investors came, offices opened, his name appeared in places he had once only dreamed of. People called him a builder, a visionary. His mother wept with pride. His father, who had never understood anything Youssef had ever done, finally nodded at him across the dinner table with something close to respect. But that is the particular cruelty of great heights. The fall is longer, and the silence on the way down is deafening. It began with a decision, just one, the kind of decision that looks small from the outside and enormous from the inside, where you are the one carrying it. A partner, his oldest friend, the one who had believed before anyone else, came to him with a disagreement. A different direction, a different vision for where the money should go, for who should lead, for what the company was supposed to become. Youssef listened. He nodded. And then, because he was tired and proud and perhaps a little afraid, he chose his own voice over the voice of the one who had stood beside him since the beginning. The friend left quietly. He did not slam doors or make speeches. He simply gathered his things over a weekend and was gone by Monday. And that silence, that dignified, heartbroken silence, lodged itself like a splinter in Youssef's chest that no success could ever reach. After that, things did not collapse all at once. They unraveled, the way a hem unravels on a coat worn too long in the rain. First slowly, then suddenly, then in a way that cannot be repaired with the tools you have on hand. The team began to feel it before they understood it. There is a kind of fear that travels through a room without anyone speaking it aloud. People started arriving later, staying shorter. Conversations that once lasted hours now ended in minutes. The young woman who used to bring ideas no one had asked for went quiet. The man who argued most passionately about the mission began looking for exits in every meeting. One by one, like birds that sense something in the air before the storm arrives, they began to disappear. Youssef hired new people, harder people, people who did not laugh easily but worked fast. He told himself this was strength. He told himself the others had been soft, that the mission required sacrifice, that great things demanded great cost. But at night, in the dark, he heard his own voice and did not always recognize it. The investors stayed longer than he deserved. That itself was a kind of mercy he did not know how to receive. They sent careful emails written in soft language that meant hard things. They sat across from him in glass rooms and asked questions that were really warnings. He answered every question with numbers. He believed numbers were armor. He did not yet understand that some conversations cannot be survived with armor. The money ran out on a Tuesday. Not dramatically. Not with a phone call or a meeting. He simply looked at a screen one morning and saw a number that meant the end. He sat with it for a long time. He made coffee he did not drink. He walked to the window and looked at the street below, at people moving through their ordinary days, carrying their ordinary bags, living inside their ordinary hours. He felt like a man looking through glass at a world he no longer belonged to. He called no one that day. This was, perhaps, his deepest wound. Not the money, not the failure, not even the loneliness. It was the discovery that he had become someone who had no one to call. Not because people were gone, but because somewhere in the years of building and climbing and defending his vision, he had stopped letting anyone close enough to matter. He had confused proximity with trust and noise with love, and by the time he understood the difference, the rooms were empty. His mother visited 3 weeks later. She did not ask about the company. She brought food he had not asked for and sat in his kitchen and spoke about small things. A neighbor, the price of bread, a dream she had had about his grandmother. He sat across from her and felt something crack open in his chest, quietly, like dry earth receiving the first rain after a long drought. He did not cry, but his hands, which had been tightly folded on the table, slowly opened. She left without giving advice, without a lesson, without a single word that sounded like wisdom. She simply stayed for 3 hours and then kissed his forehead at the door, the way she had when he was 7 years old and frightened of the dark. And somehow, in a way he could not explain and did not try to, he felt slightly less like a man who had ruined everything, and slightly more like a man who had simply lived something hard. The friend he had dismissed never returned. That door did not reopen. Some doors, once closed in pride, stay closed forever, and this is not punishment so much as consequence, the quiet, patient consequence that follows a proud man like a shadow he keeps trying to outrun. Youssef would see his old friend's name sometimes, in passing, attached to something new, something growing. He would feel the old sting, then a different feeling, something more complicated, less sharp. Something that might one day become humility if he let it. He started over. But that word, started, makes it sound cleaner than it was. It was more like he continued, wounded and slower and no longer certain of anything except that certainty itself had been his first mistake. He rented a small desk in a shared space filled with young people who had not yet been broken by anything large. He listened more. He asked questions he once would have thought beneath him. He made decisions more slowly and carried them more carefully. He did not rebuild what he had lost. That particular dream, that particular height, belonged to a different version of him. What he built instead was smaller and quieter and more honest. It did not make headlines. His name appeared nowhere impressive. His mother still bragged about him to neighbors using descriptions that were no longer accurate, and he let her because her love had never been about accuracy. What remained, after everything, was not success or failure. It was something harder to name. The knowledge that he had stood at a great height and reached further than he should have, and that the falling had not killed him. Not because he was strong, but because something in the universe is more patient with foolish, striving, frightened human beings than we deserve. And that patience, silent and uncelebrated, is perhaps the most profound mercy there is. He still does not sleep easily. But sometimes in the early morning before the city wakes, he sits with his coffee and watches the light come slowly through the window. Not with triumph, not with peace exactly, but with the quiet, earned awareness of a man who has been humbled by his own life and has chosen, however imperfectly, to remain. That is not a small thing. That is, in fact, everything.